Well, someone had suggested that I should kind of catalog some of my least favorite TwoSun's as well, since I have quite a few of them laying around. I'm not going to say that, oh, it's the worst or anything like that, because a lot of them probably do have specific uses. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and do that. First up, I do have three honorable mentions that I will kind of pick up here first. Ones that didn't make the list, but I should probably include. And this first one is actually really, really new. And that is this guy right here. This is a little Wong design. This is the 181. 14C28N steel. You can see it's actually pretty thick with the Micarta going on there. And, well, it's a titanium frame lock, so that's fairly interesting. The Micarta does actually have a little bit of flex to it because it's a little thin back there. And not quite sure exactly what the purpose of the large hole in this is. It's not a cigar cutter because it would actually have the blade fully come through for something like that. And besides, he's already made one of those. I don't remember what it was, the 179 or something like that? I don't know. But, yeah, this one, I just don't quite understand exactly its purpose. But I was interested in picking it up, so I did. It's not really a bad design overall from that. I don't know really what the hole with the little extra carve-out things are for. Obviously not really a thumb stud because it doesn't, even if you wanted it there, it's going to interface both sides there. So, yeah. Other than that, I mean, hey, the flipping action works pretty darn good. The blade is pretty darn decent. Really difficult to sharpen if you're using like an angled guided sharpener. But, yeah, there you go. There is that one. Next one, kind of in that same line, it's the TS77. This is a night morning design. It's in D2. This is a titanium block. I wouldn't really call it a full frame because you're missing basically a whole scale there. Yeah, so this one also has a flipper tab, which actually does feel a little unstable in your hands when you're trying to do that. I understand kind of the thought process behind a lot of this, but I really don't think the execution was all that great. Yeah. Let's see. And this guy right up here, I'm basically going to pull that out because, well, I can, and I will go ahead and get into it a little bit. This is, what is this, the 235? Yeah, this is from Fazelazeem. And the design of it isn't actually incredibly bad. It's just unfortunate that it's a 3-finger knife or 3.5-finger knife, but this area here just does not work with my pinky at all. I can't really find a good comfortable grip to get on the guy. And then if you want to do the reverse grip, it's also too short for me that way. That, and I guess the reason why I did want to bring this up is, well, this is kind of their normal micarta, and you can see this one's even worse. They still technically call it a linen micarta, but yeah, it's an even looser weave going on there, and we can see some voids and some just dings and whatnot going on with it. Yeah, this one just doesn't work compatibly with my hands. It's a very interesting blade. You kind of have that recurve there, and then, well, it's not really a tanto, but I guess like a secondary grind Persian thing. It's an interesting knife, but one that just doesn't work for me. All right, so the I don't really have these in a huge order or anything like that. The first one is going to include 3 of them, and it's all of these. Now this is certainly where they kind of got their start. As you can see, this is the TSMS02, TSMS03, and the TS04, which is a little bit different. These guys have thumb studs and G10 handles on there. Very recurved. They're rocking 420 J2 steel, which is usually used as decorative or protective steel. You'll see that a lot on like mall ninja weapons, but you can also see it sometimes as the outer sandwich on laminated steel blades, but really not so much for the actual cutting edge of knives, because it really doesn't hold an edge very much. 420HC is leaps and bounds better, so they don't really have all that great of performance to them. The handles aren't incredibly bad, but they don't particularly work super well. My pinky doesn't generally like that going on in there. And we also have these I don't know, gut hooks, for lack of a better term, but there is absolutely no sharpness there whatsoever. You couldn't unzip an animal with these things. You couldn't cut a seat belt with them if you really needed to. I'm not quite sure what they're there for. They're just in the way. This one's a little bit different in that it has a flipper tab, but yeah, can't really get enough leverage there, but you can open them up that way. Also G10, also 420 J2 steel. And the other thing I really wanted to bring up with these guys is these pocket clips. They're not exactly super great, and I'm sure that TwoSun really kind of understands that, because in the boxes for each of these, they come with 2 extra clips. So I'm sure that they were aware that these things are kind of fragile and problematic in general. But there you go. Yep, there are 3 of them that are they're fairly similar altogether, and yeah, they don't make any sense. Also, they don't have ball bearings in the pivots. That's definitely why this guy doesn't spring out there. It just kind of moves just a little tiny bit. Yeah. Okay, next up, I have this guy. This is a TS38 Micarta. Now, this one seems to use that same kind of micarta that the Fazelazeem one did. In this case, there's a little bit less blemishes on the micarta itself. And, taking a look at the other ones, the original version of this, which is the titanium frame lock, it's actually pretty darn good. And I don't mind the blade on this one either. It is basically the same shape. It's just they went to make a budget version of this, and it's actually fairly recent, despite the number there. But there's just a lot of it that really didn't transfer. That black pocket clip, one of the worst offenders for moving over to that. It's very uncomfortable biting into you when you want to actually grip this thing. And it's just a lot thicker. Yeah, it's not really my thing. I did get this one first, and then found a decent deal on the original titanium frame lock variant. Let's see, I can pull that out just to flex on you a little bit. Yeah, this thing is fantastic. I really like the pocket clip on there. We have a little bit more modernized kind of milling going on. The blade on that's M390 instead of D2 on the other one, but that doesn't really bother me one way or the other. But yeah, that's just one of them that didn't really make the translation into a budget knife. We got the next one, and this one sadly is quite new. This is the TS324. This is a knife from Cody Brown. I'm not familiar with pretty much anything else he's done, but yeah, this is a G10 flipper, kerchunk. You can see we have a very strange looking recurve Tonto going on here. It's in D2. I think he mentioned that he wanted it to be done in M390, and TwoSun really wasn't thrilled on that, so they made it in D2 instead. And yeah, there's just there's some things going on with it I don't like. A lot of it has to do with this back part here. There's a hole there, but the blade goes through it, so it's definitely not used for a lanyard unless you really want to have it cut off like immediately as soon as you close it. And it's also basically exposed liners that aren't really rounded off all that much. So your pinky is very uncomfortable. That mixed with the very pointy thing up top. I hate holding this thing. It's just, it doesn't ergonomically make sense to me. The deep-ish carry pocket clip on here actually doesn't bother me all that much because it's not riding at the absolute end. They've shoved it up a little bit. So, hey, there's definitely that. But, yeah, I did pick this one up. And, yeah, there's a lot of ergonomics that just don't agree with my hands. I haven't really talked to the guy about kind of his thoughts on it. I would be kind of interested in general, just to see where his mind was with especially the back end on this knife, which really makes a lot of it fall apart for me. And the tip of the knife is very, very, very accessible there in the back as well. It's at least nice and protected up top there. It's fairly inset. So there's that one there. That's the TS324. All right. Next up, I got the TS83, and this is a really strange one from, don't remember exactly who that was. My mind keeps saying Vitesse Design, and I don't think that's it, because I think they did the Jaeger. But, yes, this is a more budget version that came out a bit ago. It's a D2 blade. I picked this up because I literally won the auction for $20. But yes, it's orange and black G10. The blade on it isn't all that bad. I mean, it's I don't really have any complaints going on with the cutting edge or anything like that. It is a little thick behind the edge, but that's fine. It's in their sub 100 series there. But yeah, trying to grip it back here, you have very, very large crenellations, which I don't think are very grippy. And if you do want to get up there, which you can, you get your thumb way behind the edge there. It's kind of strange. I do like the milled pocket clip. It does sit in a groove, so it is a little bit more difficult to start to get into your pocket there. And it doesn't affect this one here, but the original titanium frame lock variant in M390 had notorious problems with the tip of the blade having all sorts of issues. Whether it would chip off, and you can still basically access the very tip of that when it's closed. And they tried to compensate for that on the originals by going even further, and it would jack up the blade on that back thing that the pocket screw, or pocket clip and screw is stuck in there. That, and it's got this huge cutout in the blade, but you can't really use that for deployment. Yeah, it's just an odd design that really didn't take into account much of human hand ergonomics and having it just very straight. I don't know. It's a strange one. Let's see. The next one we got up here is the TS56. This one's in the black micarta, but they've also made it in in the standard brown micarta and a titanium frame lock variant. All of them have the same problems I'm going to go over with here. The pocket clip actually on the titanium one is going to be different. It does flex a little bit on the tolerances going on here with how close it is to the liners. It doesn't touch or anything like that. Blade itself, not all that bad. It's got these interesting grooves on both sides. And the tip is ridiculously thick on this guy. You can see basically that secondary bevel up there is the same exact angle as it is on the straight. I didn't move anything when I was sharpening it, so it just looks super crazy there at 17 degrees. Um, so yeah, this thing is a bit slick, and it does have a little bit of a flipper tab there to protect you, but I don't think it's probably going to be enough for any of the poking tests that a Tonto is going to have things there with. Also, it does have a little bit of a void sort of thing going on around the pivot on both sides on this particular one. I've seen that on the other ones that they've done in this black micarta, but you can see they've just basically kind of dyed the outside of it. So, I don't know. The big problem with this thing is when it's all closed up, the blade is almost essentially exposed on the underside. They even have this cutout going on here that very much so exposes that blade. So it can easily bite you and or grind up against anything and dull itself if you clip this in a pocket that has keys or change or anything like that. Yeah, just not really my cup of tea. It's a D2 blade on this one as well. It's a night morning design. But yes, this one does have the same problem on the titanium variants. But there's that. Now, I got one here with a pretty major design flaw, but I really like the knife otherwise, but it's got to make it on here. And that is TS263 here. This is a night morning design. This is a fairly light, fairly large knife. It's a front flipper, basically a front flipper only, as you can see. Or I suppose you could pinch it out and use it as a two-finger sort of thing. I do like the blade design on this. This is another night morning design. This one's in 14C28N, as we can see here. And it's basically titanium with these micarta inlays here. I have kind of pulled the micarta out and did a little tiny bit of work to them and put them back in, and they're fine, except for I haven't carried it for a bit, so it's looking a little dried out. But this one comes down to the fact that they inset the titanium pocket clip into the micarta with one lash point, and it does this, and there's absolutely no way to fix it once that happens. You can tighten it down. It really doesn't matter because this also doesn't. It's not exactly circular shaped, but it's not, super crazy and oblong or anything either, which really doesn't help that. So the pocket clip on this thing is never actually going to be super good on it, unfortunately. Seems like something that it was pretty much an oversight, and something that I would say that if they did this out of carbon fiber or G10, wouldn't be anywhere near as much a problem because they're much stronger materials. But micarta is pretty soft, and especially theirs isn't exactly the most hardened of the bunches that you can get out there. So yeah, I do kind of wonder a little bit if this was Night Morning's design to go with the micarta inlay, or if that was something that TwoSun either suggested or decided was going to happen. And because of that, I turned this really, really nice larger knife into something that I'm actually scared to carry because I might lose it. So there's that. All right. Next up on my list, I have the TS108. And this one hasn't been available for a very long time. I actually purchased it used from someone who did get this knife to me, but then later on, when I purchased another one, and several other people did as well, just kind of disappeared with the money. So that's not super good, but yeah, so I did get this one. This is a D2 knife. As you can see, this is a front flipper. I guess it's got this triangular hull, but we'll get into why that's kind of irrelevant here in a little bit. But yeah, we have a very long titanium pocket clip on here. That's it's got a bit of flex to it, so that's great. But as you can see, it rides absolutely on that frame lock. So when you're trying to close that, or if this thing gets kind of messed up, that makes things difficult to actually close. That, and you can't actually have your finger on the pocket clip if you want to try to deploy that with that hole. You can attempt at least to spidey flick that, but that comes into the other problem of this top flipper here. It's a little bit sharp there, but it's also very long that it comes back. So you have to grip it way down there to be able to do the front flip to get it open. It's just something that I've seen from some other designers when they're first trying to design some of these front flippers, especially when this came out several years ago, when it was kind of a newer or emerging sort of design philosophy in the pocket knife world. And this one really just wasn't designed all that well. The handle isn't, it's not too bad in the standard grip there. I do like the fact that it's got two different pocket screws going in there, but it isn't inset into the titanium, which is why they did that. But the top of that pocket clip actually does kind of get in there on my hand. It's a little uncomfortable, which is strange because I really don't have that problem with almost any other of the titanium milled pocket clips. But you can also kind of choke up there, and that's not terrible, but we also have a very, very thick blade stock going on here. It does come down to an okay enough edge, but I really just think this knife probably needed a couple of iterations before it would have been much better than it ended up being. So there's that. This one, by the way, was from Sebastian Irwin. There we go. Which I haven't seen any other knives from, so I don't necessarily know if that had anything to do with it or not. The next one, kind of the same sort of thing going on here. This is the TS74. It's a night morning design. And this is a hawkbill kind of thing here. Yep, D2 steel. And the ergonomics, when it's open, aren't super terrible on this thing here. And it also has this matchstick pull, if you want to kind of open that two-handed. Except for the hawkbill kind of nature of the blade, it does remind me of kind of a produce knife or a fruit knife. Just very basic sort of thing going on there. This does have a titanium milled pocket clip, and it works fairly well on this guy here. What I run into is the same kind of problem, whereas this is a front flipper that ends up biting you more often than not when you're deploying it. And it will bite you even more if you try to use the flipper tab. You really have to commit to that light switch thing there to get your finger out of the way. And I actually didn't get it out of the way, but it still came open anyway. So yeah, this thing just really was not designed quite good enough for these front flipper sort of things that were kind of emerging right around that time. But I do like the long back spacer there. Kind of protects all of the blade. I do like to see that on some of those things. But yeah, also someone also had mentioned doing a flipper delete or grinding the flipper tab off of there, and that would solve some of the problems, but I don't think it would solve all of them, because I really do want to have my hand further up there, and it just interfaces with my hand with the front flipper there. So there's that. And depending on how this thing is constructed, I might be able to front flipper tab remove that and try to use it as a back flipper only. But it really depends on if it's required that the end of that meets that pen or not. I don't know. I could play around with it a little bit, but yeah, it's not exactly my favorite. Okay, next up, this one I really don't understand. This is the TS185 RC, or Razor Comb. This is, yep, another night morning design. This one's in 14C28N, and it's supposed to kind of look like a straight razor here. And we got these teeth here. It's supposed to be like a beard comb, which I can kind of understand a little bit where they're going with that. A lot of people will use a wood beard comb that does kind of look a little bit like that, but they're not going to have separate rows usually. And yeah, this thing does a pretty good job of pulling my beard hair out rather than settling it around like it's supposed to. The other thing here is, well, it doesn't lock, and that makes sense with a straight razor, but we do have a stop pin here, so it can't open further than that. And that's interesting because, well, that's not very comfortable or safe feeling, so you would have to do it back here to be able to get a nice grip on it, and then you're miles away from the blade. Yeah, I actually do have a standard straight razor here, and generally you're supposed to go through the handle with that back thing and hook it onto your index finger, and you can grab that and bring it up to your face to do all of those shaving bits. And this one, because it's got that stop pin there, you can't. And it's also not super curved for it. So yeah, this one, I'm not quite sure. That, and it's 14C28N. And it's a little thin behind the edge here, but nowhere near as thin as you're going to get on an actual straight razor, which is virtually non-existent behind the edge there. So yeah, it doesn't really do a good job of combing one's beard or shaving. So yeah, this one's just kind of an interesting aside. I guess I don't remember the actual brand that this is. It's a German-made one with just a synthetic handle here. It's not Dovo, because those were much more expensive in general. But it was something that I used to sell at my cutlery shop. Like I said, I don't really remember the company. The same company we ordered it from, we got a lot of Merkur razors, they're double-edged safety razors and everything. But that being said, this definitely isn't a Merkur, so I don't know. And the last one, which is a little sad for me to kind of put on here, this is a Mazwan Mokhtar. This is a TS304 Basilisk. And a lot of you who have seen a lot of my videos here over the past year are probably familiar with why this is on the list here. There's a lot to really like about this knife, but it has a pretty ugly design flaw or design execution, I should say, because I have kind of heard a bit from Mazwan Mokhtar in this particular instance, where he had mentioned that TwoSun had changed the design of the barrel spacers that are used back here. My complaint on it is, yep, and you can even see it here, blade wrap happens on that, not the outer, but this barrel spacer here. But you can also see that this blade shape seems to sweep up a little bit more than you think that it might. And that's because I've actually taken quite a bit of material off of this, ground it completely flat, and then re-put the edge back on several times. So this sweeps up a lot more than it normally did. And it still has the problem of getting some blade wrap there. And that has to do with the stop pin in here, which is halfway in the carbon fiber and halfway in the steel liners there. And the way that it sits on the kind of slanted area of the tang of the blade causes it that if you squish that, you can see it will move on you. And the problem is that it moves enough that when you close it like that, like you normally would with any other knife with ball bearings on the pivot, still smacks that barrel spacer. So it's got a major design flaw. that really does need to be rectified. I do like the fact that they tried to do the nested liner approach. I really do like that in a lot of other knives. But in this particular instance, because the carbon fiber does have a little bit more flex and give in it, and the way that the blade interfaces with that stop pin just causes problems that to be able to completely fix, you really need to thin the whole blade out by, I really want to say, a couple of millimeters. I think I've already taken 2 or 3 off of the front 2/3 of this, and it still happens. So yeah, there's that one in particular. It's sad because I really do like the knife. Otherwise, the thumb studs feel super great on it. The ergos are pretty good. It does have a little bit of a pointy sort of thing going on there, but for the most part, it's not really interfacing uncomfortably with my hand, and you can also, of course, choke up. This thing doesn't have a, well, I guess it has a very microscopic finger choil, or, yeah, finger choil, sharpening choil there. I really do like the fact that it has a pretty fast drop-off there, but yeah, I do think that having a bit more of a sharpening choil would be great, and either changing out that top stop pin and going with Moz1's original designs for the barrel spacers would probably fix that. It's either that or shorten up the blade height here by quite a bit to be able to make it work in this particular package. So there you go. There's my top 10 of kind of my least favorites. I can go ahead and bring them all back up here since they're just sitting over on the side. Got them all with the pocket clip up because, well, that's the way I keep them in my drawers. I guess in my pants as well, but in this particular instance, I'm talking about the jewelry drawers that I end up having them in for organizational purposes. And yeah, here's my 3 runners up here. So yeah, we got the TS181, we got the 77, we got the 235, we got the MSO2, MSO3, TS04, TS38, the Micarta variant, TS324, the TS83, TS56, TS263, TS108, TS74, TS185-RC, and the 304. I am noticing that there's a lot here from Night Morning, and certainly not picking on him for his designs. He still has a lot of absolute bangers out there as well. You got the TS129 that a lot of people absolutely adore, and there's also the TS273, that titanium frame lock with that orange G10 scale, which is an ergonomic masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. But still, that being said, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of my 10-ish that are from him as well, because he does a lot of strange things, and sometimes they just don't work. So, all right, well, this was I don't know. It was an interesting experience. Yeah, these are just the TwoSun's knives that probably won't get all that much pocket time from me. Well, especially the ones that aren't designed to be carried in a pocket. Yes. Well, I guess that kind of wraps all of that stuff up. So yeah, I do hope to pick up a lot of newer models in this coming year and continue to talk about them as long as you know, my wallet and my lifestyle can support that, because yeah, I don't exactly make an enormous amount of money. So yeah, most of it ends up going into these because, well, I like them. All right. Well, as always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.